All right, let's get it popping. Welcome, everyone, to my Overwatch hero tier list. I think a lot of people have been asking for this. They've been pleading for it, in fact. So finally, going to answer the masses. Of course, it all want hero tier list. They want to know what's the meta. I held off on it because I wanted to wait for the patch to settle. I wanted to see, what we're actually seeing in the top level meta, like what's really taking over. Because it took some time, and I think at the start, a lot of people thought these rush comps might be good with the buffs to Ryan and Diva. They thought those heroes might be relevant again. Spoiler alert, they're not really. So let's just jump right into it. So in order to think about this, for S tier, I'm just gonna call it perma viable. Well, S, I'll leave the S. Always viable. So these are the heroes that more or less always, I'm pretty sure you can just play these heroes and it almost doesn't matter what the map is. The comp around them does matter, but these are just the strongest heroes. These are the meta defining heroes. First one to go in here. Well, maybe this is a better way to look at it. It's the meta defining heroes. Meta defining, which means that these heroes are causing the meta to be the way it is. At least in my opinion, these heroes, their dominance is so powerful that you're basically picking the other heroes in your team comp around these heroes. So I'm only gonna have a very small number of heroes in this tier. Sigma, for one, he's just a very dominant tank right now. You can play double shield with Sigma. On certain maps that have very close quarters, you could play Ryan and Sigma with a Sim comp or Junkrat comp with Lucio Baptiste. You could play Ball. Sigma is super dominant, obviously. Is probably the current strongest comp. So I think although you might argue that a hero like Wrecking Ball is individually more powerful, is just very strong in his current kit tuning, I think Sigma is the hero that you can basically one trick and it's viable. I don't think there's a huge issue with one tricking this hero because it basically fits in every comp. The next hero I'd put in that same category is Zenyatta. I think with Sigma being a dominant choice and, as well, Wrecking Ball is another dominant choice. We'll get to him in a sec. But Zenyatta just is really well positioned to succeed in this meta. DPS that are seeing a lot of playtime are Echo and Tracer and others, but Echo and Tracer seeing so much playtime makes Zen better. So Zen just fits really, really well in with this top tier, kind of taking over the game, defining the meta. And to be honest, I think I'll put Wrecking Ball in the same tier with Zen and Sigma because I think these three heroes are really the core of the current top tier meta, which is mostly Sigma, Wrecking Ball, and you're pretty much always going to see a Zen. I think if you're playing these heroes, you're basically always playing Zen with them. The only other hero I'm going to put in this category is going to be Tracer, actually. I think there's a lot of DPS that see a ton of playtime. I think Echo is... I guess Echo is a real competitor for this top tier of play. I think Echo very much is at that level. But I really think Tracer is just the commonality. She's the DPS you're going to see in almost every variant of this top tier meta is going to have a Tracer. Virtually always. If you're playing Wrecking Ball and Zen, you should just have a Tracer. It just makes too much sense, right? Tracer is super self-sustainable. She's great at taking the Harmony Orb from Zen and making a lot of value out of it. At the same time, she's great at following up for something like Wrecking Ball, whether that's booping somebody, out of position, the Tracer can get behind and stick them, or just, one clip them down, or just following up on regular dives from the ball and, getting those quick kills. There's just a lot of natural synergy here. I think there might be a lot of argument to put Echo in this tier, but I'm actually going to start the next tier with Echo. And, we'll keep it like this. We'll be tanks, DPS, and then support. So with the next tier of heroes, I'm going to call these strong options. They're strong choices. They're definitely powerful heroes, but I wouldn't think of them as must picks. You're not necessarily building your entire strategy around these heroes. They're very, very good and they fit in really naturally with these meta defining heroes. But, as strong options, I think they're not as mandatory, right? I think the power of what puts these heroes in the class of their own is that they're almost mandatory at the top level to play these four heroes. Whereas, let's look at the tank slot, I think you can play double shield. I think you can play Sig with Orisa instead of Wrecking Ball. So Wrecking Ball maybe is not 100% mandatory. I would call Roadhog in this tier. So these are more options. You're pretty much 100% going to be playing one of these two heroes, Sigma and Ball. Usually you're playing both. But if you're going to swap, Sigma is the goated hero because you're basically never swapping that hero in the current meta. So Orisa and Hog are both heroes that you can play typically with Sigma. The Hog can be played with Wrecking Ball as well to cut Sigma. That's a bit more rare. But yeah, so there's different combinations of these tanks. But these are definitely not that premier tier that Sigma and Wrecking Ball are holding. Up next, we've got in the strong options category is Ashe. and Echo on the DPS role. I think these heroes are both incredibly powerful. The only reason I have them a tier below Tracer is that typically the Tracer is the commonality, sort of the same situation with these tanks, right? Typically these tanks are the commonality and these tanks are the sort of, optional, you can flex them in. For Tracer, Tracer's in almost every strat. Sometimes she's played with Echo, sometimes she's played with Ashe. Sometimes you might even play Echo and Ashe together, but I think that is a very rare occurrence. I think typically is only played against double shield when you play Ashe and Echo together with like a Zen Mercy comp, let's say. And then for the supports in the same tier, I'm going to put Brig in this tier. I think Brig is another hero in conversation for the top tier, but not quite as meta-defining as the Zenyatta. I'm going to put Mercy here as well. And, I'm even going to leave Baptiste here. I think even after the Baptiste nerfs, I think all three of these heroes can pair really effectively with Zenyatta, which is sort of the reason I think they're all in this option tier. Your support comp is almost always this meta going to be one of these three combos, right? Zen Brig, Zen Bap, or Zen Mercy. Occasionally, you might run, like, let's say, if you had a ton of damage on the rest of your team comp, and you didn't want to run a Zen because you were playing, like, double shield or something where you just really wanted more defense. If you're playing double shield against a dive comp, you might play the Bap Brig comp or some sort of Bap Mercy style. But the Zen, I think, is going to see the lion's share of playtime at the top tier. So this is really the most important tiers, in my opinion, in the tier list, because these are the heroes that, like, if you watch pro play, I'm betting 90% of playtime is going to go to these heroes. And the other heroes are really going to be more of a niche pick for a certain map, certain situation. Maybe you're counterpicking the enemy team's, preference. They don't want to play a certain part of the meta, then you can maybe counterpick them with Rush. That's going to do it for the A tier, the strong options tier. So B tier, what are we going to call B tier? So if meta-defining heroes, the S tier, if A tier heroes are strong options, B tier heroes are, I'll call them alternates. Or, well, we'll call them specialists. Specialist picks. So these are going to be the picks that counter certain styles really effectively. These are going to be the picks that can play well on certain specific map types and game styles. But I think this is definitely where the tier list breaks down, because we are going to be getting into just full different compositions that might not run any of the dominant meta heroes because they exist to punish a certain level of greed on a certain map. Like if you played Mercy Zen, you might be vulnerable to a Lucio Moira just all-in dive comp. Even though that Lucio Moira comp is very, very bad if the enemy goes Brig, you might still be vulnerable to it because you started on Mercy Zen, which is like the most greedy variant of the meta. It definitely breaks down a little bit here, but let's think about tanks first here. I think Zarya's in this tier for sure. There's some occasional strats. You might run a Zarya comp with some of these heroes. I think she can be made to work, but I just think she's just going to be a rarer choice than the other heroes. Honestly, I'm not sure if there's any other tanks. I think all these other tanks might be in the next tier. I think D.Va is in a pretty rough spot. She's had bad matchups against pretty much all the strong tanks right now. I think Winston, arguable. I mean, even Ryan is arguable. Yeah, I mean, these heroes are all pretty bad, honestly. I think it's only Zarya for the tank, actually, at this level. I think the next tanks are going to be in C tier. Winston might be the best tank of the C tier, along with D.Va, but I don't know. It's maybe D.Va. I'm going to call... All right, so I'm going to skip ahead to the Rush comp. C tier is Rush comp, guys. Sometimes, even in the current meta that's not playing any of these heroes, if the enemy is too greedy, if the enemy is playing, like I said before, they're playing, let's say they're playing Zen and Mercy, and they're playing Ashe, and they're playing Tracer. Actually, also, I should throw McCree in this tier, too. I think McCree is all right as well, next to Ashe. Maybe Ashe is a little bit better, but I think McCree... Now we'll put McCree in B tier. But, okay, back to Rush comp. So, if the enemy's going super greed, like they have absolutely no defensive utility, they're all in aggression, like they're playing Ashe and Echo and Mercy Zen, some sort of extremely greedy comp that has no survivability whatsoever, and you're playing on a certain map that is close quarters and no high ground or limited high ground. Occasionally, this Rush comp might be strong. It might be a good tool to punish those extremely greedy styles. What else is in the Rush comp? May put Sim here as well. Actually, I think Sim might be a little bit better than this. Sim might be in there. Supports, Lucio, Moira. These heroes really suck, but this comp can work. It can punish greed in very specific positions. But yeah, so let's go back to the B tier. Let's finish off our B tier now that we've put these Rush comp heroes in Rush comp. I mean, it's kind of a tier of its own because if you're playing any of these heroes, you're probably playing them all. The only exception might be on like Control Center of Lijiang Tower or certain Koth maps. You might play Lucio Baptiste with like a Rhine comp and like a Sim or something. There's and a Junkrat, you know, those sorts of heroes. They can work, but they're pretty weird and rare. But yeah, so this is sort of a tier of its own. It's important to think of these heroes not really as like they are. It's a low tier because it's just not popular. All right, let's think about the rest of the heroes though. I think we can put Winston as a specialist pick. I think this hero can function on a specialist level. You know, there's certain maps, certain comps where you might be playing something like you might playing an Ana. I think Ana can be considered a specialist pick this meta. I don't think she's too strong. She's okay against ball. She's pretty good against ball, but I think pretty bad against the rest of the comps, like the style that people are playing right now. She's not great at healing the current meta DPS that are so strong, like Echo and Tracer. So just leaving Ana in the specialist category for now. Put Bastion down here. Bastion sucks big booty right now. I think Hanzo, again, it's like okay next to McCree. You know, there's going to be certain places you're going to want to play like double sniper. I think Widow can go here too. You know, you might want to play a second sniper along with Ashe, like a Hanzo Ashe, or maybe Widow Hanzo occasionally, but Widow is probably banished to the realms of like Havana at this meta. I feel like or Junkertown first. You know, these like certain maps where just infinite sight lines. So you basically have to play Widow. Put Sombra here too. You know, I think a lot of people, when they see Wrecking Ball in the meta, they immediately think Sombra as like a counter to Wrecking Ball. But this is a meta tier list that's focusing mostly on like the top level of play. And I think the higher you go up the level of play right now, the worse Sombra really gets. People have gotten really, really adept at canceling the hacks. And if you get your hack canceled on Sombra and you're forced to TP out, your fight is like over. Like your contribution to the team fight is basically nothing. And that risk at the top level is almost too much, especially when you're playing against this much damage amp like Zen and Mercy. You know, you could just get one tapped. You're playing against Sigma, who can either stun you or just block you with his shield so you can't farm EMP. I think EMP itself is okay, but you're also playing against oftentimes Zen and Brig. And again, at the top level, Trance is basically a counter to EMP. At the top level, the Zens are almost always going to trance the EMP. Put Torb in this tier as well, specialist pick. I think Torb could be higher. I think he has some potential. But the real problem is that Zen, Ashe, Echo, they just all have a great matchup against Torb. They can just break the turret really easily and just kill Torb from mid-range where he's just not so effective. Whereas I think Torb is great against Wrecking Ball and Tracer. The problem is I think these other heroes are just a little bit too good against Torb. The Lava leaves something to be desired, I think, at the top tier. But I think this hero is extremely viable in pubs. Like, even anything in the specialist tier I would consider viable in a public game setting. I think Doomfist could also be considered a specialist hero. I mean, he's kind of a rush comp hero. You pretty much never actually... No, Doomfist isn't the rush comp tier because Doomfist is like... You're basically never picking Doomfist unless you're coming back from spawn and you're valuing his fast rollout. So we'll put him in rush comp tier. I don't think he's as bad as Bastion. Trash. I don't think he's as bad as Bastion. Put Genji in the specialist tier. I want to put him over here next to Ana because you're basically only going to be playing it when you're playing like Gibraltar. You know, you might play the Ana Mercy Genji style with like Winston Diva. You know, these styles can work. But the reason these heroes are in the specialist tier is that they're just more rarely seen with they're more rarely seen, I think, with the top comps. You know, maybe I should adjust this actually. You know, I think for DPS I might need to be a little bit more generous with the S tier because I feel like this specialist tier is getting a little bit too broad and it'd be better to differentiate. And I think it's fair to consider all three of these heroes top tier, like together. I think they can all be very, very strong. So what is... Like, I mean, these are really the top defining heroes. I mean, I wish Tracer could be, like, even a step higher because I think she's even stronger and more consistent, getting more playtime than these heroes because typically you're always having the Tracer and only one of the other two. But heroes like McCree, you know, I think Hanzo is here too, are definitely better than these other heroes in this cast of characters. So, like, these heroes are going to see more playtime than these heroes by, I think, a pretty serious margin. I think we could even put Torb here too, actually. I think Torb is definitely like better than, you know, the rest of these heroes. I think Sim, gonna leave Sim in the specialist picks. I think at the high level, because double shield is not very dominant and ball is pretty dominant, I think Sim kind of sucks against Wrecking Ball, frankly. It's very easy for Wrecking Ball to punish a lot of the plays that Sim makes, and it's not easy to get your left click beam charged up on Sim. And getting rolled through or getting pushed over the wall, things like that are really hard counters to Sim. So gonna leave Sim down here, leave Genji down here. And we just have these other DPS. Put Junkrat in the specialist tier. Again, it's a hero you're going to play on you know, certain specific maps with like this Rhine, Bap, Lucio style that's like, you know, rushing to the chokes and holding the chokes before the enemy team gets there. Maybe with Sim at the same time. We can put him next to Sim. Soldier, same category as these other heroes. I think a little bit better than Sombra, but, you know, whatever. There's about the same level. And I honestly think Pharah, though, might... Ooh, it's dangerous. I'm dangerously close to putting Pharah in the trash, guys. You know... This is a tough call. It's really a tough call for Pharah because the problem for Pharah is not that she's such a bad hero. It's that the matchups in the current meta are just abysmally bad for Pharah. Like, you get discorded by Zen. The Echo just destroys you in the air. The Ashe destroys you from low ground. You know, the Tracer pokes you when you run out of gas and you drop. The Tracer kills you. I mean... I don't think this hero is as bad as Bastion, but I think it's really bad. Like, you're basically never... Like, why would you play Pharah over Echo ever? I'm trying to think of a reason. Like, I don't think there is one. Maybe this is controversial. I mean, but at the same time, it's not as bad. I mean, Bastion...
Poggy
like, these heroes are terrible. So, Pharah... Ooh, this is such a tough call, because I feel like she's not that bad, but the current meta... against very strong players, like, for instance, they should probably play... Obviously, if they play Brig, then I think... I mean, maybe Pharah's okay, because in pubs, guys, people are going to play Torb and Brig and stuff that Pharah's actually good against. So maybe we could put Pharah up in the specialist category. Maybe we can. Maybe that's all right. I don't think... She's not as bad as these other heroes. She's not... like, the problem for Pharah is she's just a worse version of Echo. It can work, and you just play Pharah instead of Echo. But at the high tier of play... The Echo is just so much better in almost every way that you're basically never going to see Pharah at the top level. I think to make an allowance for different skill brackets, I don't want to put Pharah all the way down in the trash. I think Bastion is really all the way down in the trash. The current meta, you've got Tracer to pulse bomb him. Baptiste is not quite as good as he used to be. He's been nerfed. You got Zen and Echo to break shields and like jump. Echo is insane against Bastion. You jump behind him and sticky him, and very, very bad for you. You know, you feed a lot of ult playing the Bastion comp to a hero like Echo, who then copies a Sigma and kills you or whatever. Ball can like knock your teammates away from you. Bastion's okay against Wrecking Ball actually in specific, but Sigma has a great matchup against Bastion. The current meta just really does not favor the Bastion style. Like, even if you're going to play double shield, you basically should never play Bastion. Yeah, that's the tier list, guys. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you guys enjoyed this current meta tier list. I think this meta tier list is a little bit biased to the top level of play, but I tried to hedge some things and, you know, sort of give you you know, a little bit more of a balanced look. Maybe if you're not necessarily in the top skill bracket, have some more applicable choices that I think are still good picks. But yeah, this is my tier list of the current patch. Hope you guys enjoyed.